Hello, everybody. This is Real Singers on Singing. I think it's episode number 16. It's been a really long time since I've done one of these, and I'm going to do a whole series called "Opera Singers Do It Better." And my first guest is back. He was on the first group of podcasts I did. Andrew Owens, opera singer extraordinaire. Tell him a little bit about yourself, real quick, and what's going on with you, and let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Dan, first, thanks for having me, man. Nice
Yeah,
to see you
thanks for
again.
having me.
My pleasure, man. Yeah, so I've been at this for about, I'd say, legit professionally for about a decade right now, give or take. The majority of my career was based out in Europe. My training was all in the States, but then I headed out here meaning this continent, in about 2010 or 11, and kind of set up shop in Vienna and kind of had my earliest successes there. And then it kind of led to just singing all over back in the States and Russia and Canada, Brazil, all these crazy places. And I'm currently right now in Zurich. I'm doing a production here in Switzerland. So, um, and yeah, and currently living in Chicago at the moment. And originally from Philadelphia. I'm a hardcore Philadelphia fan, and yeah, I guess that's my bio so far.
What production are you doing right now?
So this is Lucia di Lammermoor. This is a role, actually, the role of Arturo, who is the doomed bridegroom who, Lucia goes crazy and murders him, and so I've done this role a few times, and the cast is incredible. The lead tenor role is Edgardo, who's being sung by one of my idols, Polish tenor Piotr Beczała, who's just an incredible singer. And it was pretty funny too, because I talked to him the other day. We've kept in touch since I met him about a decade ago. But when I met him a decade ago, I was doing a young artist program, and I was doing a coaching with him. So uh, I reminded him of that, and he goes, "It's been 10 years." I'm like, "Yeah, 10 years," and he's like, "Ah, it's crazy. I can't believe it." So it's pretty cool that now I went from you know and still, I mean, even seeing him in rehearsals, I still get kind of starstruck. But it's been cool to have gone to a point where a lot of these people who I saw you know on Met HD broadcasts, or listened to on the radio, or watched on YouTube, like, these are people I count as colleagues, and some of them as friends. I mean, it's a pretty cool journey. So yeah,
Nice. And
yeah.
you are known as a Rossini tenor, correct? That's
hmm
primarily what you've done in your career?
Primarily, I've done a lot of the works of Rossini, from Barbara Seville, Cenerentola, and there's the famous Rossini festival that's in Pesaro, which is the place he was born and raised. And I'll be um, making my debut at that festival this summer, so I'm really excited about that, to tackle a really difficult role. It's a later in Rossini's career, he kind of took up residence in Paris, and he wrote some more large scale French um, grand operas, as they're referred to. And one of them is a revision of uh, a big rewrite, a French revision of an opera he had written previously, called Moses in Egypt. And so this is a much larger scale version, called Moses and the Pharaoh. I was literally seeing the word in French, and I just said Pharaon. Um, so Moise Pharaon is the proper term, the title of it. So I'll be doing that this summer, making my debut there. So I'm really really excited for that.
Nice. And
Yeah.
how much longer you think you're gonna be doing Rossini rep?
It's I'm slowly moving more into more lyric things a bit. So, lighter, not so heavy things from Puccini and Verdi and Donizetti. So still staying kind of in the bel canto rep, but adding a few lyric things gradually. But there are things that I'll continue to sing that I enjoy. But if I had my druthers, I'd dive right into the meatier things right now. But that's not a recipe for longevity in the field. If I want 5 6 years of just banging out all the heavy things, then maybe I'll do that. But I'd like to. I'm in it for I'm in it for the long haul, hopefully. So
And when you say heavy, so actually, I have two questions off that.
yeah.
When you say heavy things, other vocal students are going to be asking, what do you mean by heavy things? So, yeah, what do you mean by that? What does that mean? Heavy things.
Uh, well, normally it's the size of the orchestra. A lot of times, for example, like a composer like Puccini was notorious for doubling the vocal line in some of the loudest instruments in the pit. So, um, anytime you're singing a melody, you're up against an entire army of strings and brass and stuff like that, and basically you're always going to lose. You'll never win that battle unless you have some Herculean voice. So when I say heavy, I mainly mean things that require a substantial amount of volume and heft in the voice, which I don't have. I'm gaining more as I get older and as I train more. I'm still always working and studying, and the voice just naturally with age is evolving. But so for heavy, I mean things like that. It's not really a question of high notes or anything like that, because you need plenty of those to sing Rossini and bel canto. It's more so um, where the bulk of the singing takes place in the role. So for things like Puccini and Verdi, it's all upper middle where it can really tire you out, as opposed to the Rossini stuff, which is very florid and kind of light and pops up to these crazy high notes every once in a while. But so heavy, I guess, would more so be about orchestration, would more so be about the vocal writing itself, whether or not it's in a congenial place for the voice or not.
So
So
not so much like a vocal fold thickness and things like that, or would you consider you're digging in a little deeper to the folds to get more of those the heavier overtones versus the
Uh, yeah, I mean, the temptation is there when you're up against and when you're up against a big orchestra. The temptation is always to press and always to push a bit when you feel like when you're being outnumbered,
yeah.
um, or if your stage partner is some, you know, big hulking baritone or a soprano like that. The temptation is always to give a bit more, and that's often the danger.
Right.
Is you know, to really discipline yourself and plant your feet and realize that in any situation, less is going to be more, just because of the nature of the instrument and you know the way resonance is created and the way it's best enhanced is often by doing less, and it's often by just really focusing on your breath and staying low and staying, you know, grounded, because anytime you do this or anytime you clench or anytime you press or this or that, the sound is always going to be smaller. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that's gone that you any favorite tenors that have gone from Rossini to more of the lyric that you've
Oh yeah.
done
Oh
it
yeah. Big
well
time.
that you go, I love the way he did the move, you know?
Well, one of the most uh, famous is Gregory Kundi, actually, who's an American tenor who, you know, he's probably the most shining example of it. You know, who basically had a renaissance in his career where he sang all through the, you know, late '80s, '90s, early thousands, you know, aughts, whatever you want to say, singing primarily the bel canto rep, singing a lot of Rossini, singing all the crazy high stuff, Bellini, all this stuff. And then he retrained his voice and came back as a dramatic tenor, basically singing stuff like Verdi's Otello and singing, you know, Forza del Destino and Trovatore and all these big honking things. But what's amazing about someone like Greg is the fact that, um, and I don't know if this is a feat that's been accomplished in anyone here in anyone's lifetime currently. Like maybe back when these composers were alive, there were singers
Yeah.
who dabbled in both, but he's the only person I can think of who sang Rossini's Otello, you know, which is a very florid kind of piece, while at the same time, you know, like a month later singing Verdi's Otello, which is unheard of. To be able to go back and forth between two operas where, you know, the title may be the same, but they could not be more different in composition, and the tenor role themselves couldn't be more different. You know, it's the difference between and you know, it's just, and the fact that uh, Greg just has such a rock solid technique, and you know has been going so long, and he knows his voice inside and out. Um, you know, I was singing in Dayton, Ohio, and he was doing uh, a Verdi Otello in concert in Cincinnati, and I just scooted my tail to the Enterprise and rented a car and drove to Cincinnati and watched him sing it and just sat there, and it was riveting. You know, he was so committed to the character, even though it was a concert performance, and it was a masterclass. And to boot, he's, you know, someone I consider a friend and a mentor, and he's just been unbelievably supportive. I was in the finals of a competition in Barcelona, a very big competition, and he was there singing, and you know, he was coming to all of my rounds to watch me sing, and then he'd say like, "Hey, let's go get a coffee afterwards, or let's go get lunch," and he would talk to me and give me advice, and just so supportive, and just a down to earth, great human being.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What did he ever when he retrained his voice? Was there anything that he did specifically, or did he go study with someone specifically, or he more on his own?
That's a good question. I don't know actually. It could have been just the nature of, you know, being I don't want to insult him and call him an older gentleman, but you know, he's been at it for a while, and it could just be the evolution of the voice itself and and the anatomy and his chemistry changing.
Okay.
But I actually never asked him what he did to really make that shift.
Right.
I mainly asked him about how he did what he did back in the 90s, because
Right.
that's the stuff I was singing at the time. I'm like, how did you do that? Like, cause
Yeah.
it's the stuff I was singing. So I wasn't going to pick his brain about the dramatic tenor stuff,
Yeah.
because I have no business even sniffing that stuff. So
Smart. Smart.
yeah.
You know, that leads me to a question. So
Uh-huh.
I wrote down just a bunch of little questions here.
Go for it.
How long does it take you to learn an opera as a leading role? A leading role,
Yeah.
opera tenor. How long would you say you study all the pieces of that production, and altogether, how many hours do you think you lay in?
I The hours are countless really, because a lot of it is repetition, and a lot of it is, it's not a matter of you're ready to do it when it sticks in your head. It's much more than that.
Right. So you've got to get it in your head, plus the language,
Plus the language, it's getting the music in your body, it's getting the music in your throat. It's not a matter of I know the notes and I
right,
know what they are on the page. And then additionally, it's not a matter of okay, now I have it memorized. It's a
acting.
matter of,
No, no.
is this something you can sing? You know, if the director of the opera has you laying on your back, can you still sing this music? Can they have you running around in circles? Is this something you can do? Is the music that ingrained in you?
Wow.
And it's, you know, I'm not gonna lie. There are some roles that I simply haven't either had the time or the work ethic at the time to really get it to that point. And it was just one of these, you know, if it was a role that I knew I'd never do again, it was just one of these. Okay, let me just get it and
Right.
get it here in the brain. Does it sound good enough? Okay, we're good. But obviously, if it's something that I'm invested in, because it's something I feel I would sing a lot, or if it's something I really connect with musically, or music I feel that I really should know
Right.
for my voice type, I'm going to spend a very long time. I mean, and you know, when I made um, my debut at Seattle Opera, it was in a very challenging role, and I got the contract. I think 2.5 years before it happened, to,
Amazing.
in between there. And I
That's
started working immediately. I immediately bought the score, and you know, that summer, which was only a couple months later, I took it right to my teacher, and we started just pounding away at it. And I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked. And you know, I would love to go back and change some things about how I worked, but that's part of the process too. Is knowing that uh, there's a difference between doing something over and over again, but then there's also practicing efficiently too at the same time. Not a matter of okay, I'm going to sing this high C 1,000 times until it feels good. It's like that's not very efficient.
right.
There's a much more efficient way of practicing, and I think I found that now. So
Oh, good. And
yeah,
but yeah, so the whole reason I asked that question is because I don't think people realize the amount of work that you guys put in.
yeah,
I mean, it's like you said, 2 years. That's probably, yeah, I would say it would probably take someone that long to learn all the arias that they have to sing for that production,
yeah,
acting in it, the language perfect. You got, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and not to mention all the high C's and B flats you're gonna have to hit. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's
I understand.
amazing, but because I get in, I get with bands and I'll go, yeah, man, here's 10 songs. Take your time. And they'll call me in like 3 days. Yeah, yeah, I got them. I go, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Like, what you do? Listen to them, and the drummer wrote the beat down, and you wrote, oh, boop, boop, bop, bop, boom, boom. Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
You
that's
do
not learning
that.
it.
Oh, it's
No.
you guys put a lot of work in. That's why I wanted to call this whole these segments or these podcasts "Opera Singers Do It Better." Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's in one of the things too that's deceiving is, oh, by the way, I have the door to my balcony open. It's not, you don't hear too much noise out there, do
no,
you?
not at all.
Just making sure. Okay. Um, so there's one other thing that goes along with that is I when I was studying in school, I used to have such a it was a misconception about what it took to sing. And I would watch some of my idols and watch some of these people, and it was seemingly so easy for them. They sang so effortlessly. And because it was not effortless for me, I'm like, well, I suck. It's terrible. And I just want to be able to get to a point where it's that way. And if I can't do that by nature, I must be a bad singer. But the realization that I had to make was it takes an incredible amount of work to get it to seem and look effortless. And even now, there's some soprano colleagues, especially that I watch, who just have just the they are a picture of calm and radiance and grace when they sing, and no matter despite the fact that they're doing these incredible things with their voice, but it took a lot of work to get it that way. It's not just they just roll out of bed and they're like, yeah, I can do this. I've been able to do this for 45 years. No, it took work. It took a lot of time.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you also you're into rock and roll and
Oh yeah.
punk, and we talked about our love for Ryan Adams.
Yeah, big
Yeah,
time.
I'm a big fan too.
Mhm.
And also, and I don't think I've ever asked you, have you ever sung with a band?
Oh yeah. Yeah, big time.
You
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. I did all through high school and college.
Awesome.
And then I would get every once in a while I would get back with the guys and we would like play stuff and then but as far as with a band now, I probably haven't sang or played with a band now. It's going on at least, God, it's been 15 years, maybe 10, 15 years.
Right.
So my plan for when I get situated is I've been playing acoustic for such a long time just because it's easy,
You
it's
play great. You play
portable.
really.
Oh, thanks, man. I
I've been
appreciate
playing
it.
guitar my whole life, and I watch you play acoustic. I'm like,
Oh,
Jesus.
thanks, man. Yeah, what I was gonna say is I'm finally just at a point where I'm like, I miss playing electric so bad. So I'm just gonna get a rig and I'm just gonna get I've already got my list of ones that I want to get into the shop and try out and do it. I'm a huge guild fan, so there's a bunch of guilds that I'm looking at that I want to play and stuff, and I
Nice.
just want to get back into playing. So
Oh,
I
that's
miss.
great. I always want to ask you that. I don't think I've ever asked you. I'm glad to hear.
Yeah,
To hear.
yeah. We used to do a lot of we did a lot of Alice in Chains covers. We did a lot of Jane's Addiction. We did what else did we do?
See, and that's the common misconception is the opera singer cannot sing rock and roll, and
Hmm.
the rock and roll singer cannot sing opera, and I don't believe that. Like, I've
No,
been
no.
around, studying voice forever. Am I great by any means? No, good, and probably not either. But I know the voice enough to I hear the same qualities in a good singer. I hear
It's
the same qualities in the opera singer that I do in the rock singer. I can
well,
really.
yeah. It's when I figured out that there's a primal kind of sound uh, that goes into singing opera that is not unlike what I used to do when I was belting, because then when I would do my voice lessons, I pull my, I'm 17, 18, whatever I'm on, I'm sitting here going like, "Ah, per la gloria d'ador," and doing my like, but then, at the same time, my teacher one time, he wanted to watch me, he wanted to watch one of my musical theater videos. And then he heard me like really letting it rip. And he goes, "Why don't you do that?" And I said, "Well, that's not correct." He goes, "Says who?" And I just, when I realized later that the sounds that I was making in my band and stuff like that, it's just, the operatic version is just a much more refined and a cultured, if you want to call it, and tamed version of that sound. So if I'm doing like what did we used to do? Like we would do rooster all the time.
Right.
And I'd sit there and get to the here they come to snuff the rooster, and I go, oh yeah. But then when I realized I did that, and then I take that basic sound where I feel the kind of closure in my chord,
Yep.
and I could sit there and go, yeah, and then feel the same kind of like, okay, I know what's going on there, but I need to give it a bit more support. I need to
Right.
give it more space and this and that. But for me, the basic functionality is the
Yep.
same, essentially.
I'm so glad to hear someone in your professional say that, because that's what
Yeah.
I've always felt that, and I've seen it, I could hear it. And the only difference I always say, like sometimes people ask, well, opera singer cancer. I go, no, really the only difference is the opera singer will support his low notes. The rock singer will not, because he's using a microphone.
Yeah.
So most of the low notes are really not supported. So they're more speech like, but as we go up through the passaggio and then high, it's so similar. It's so
But
similar.
yeah, but what's interesting is you'll hear like a Lane Staley or an Eddie Vedder,
Oh,
like
and they'll support those low
lower.
notes.
They'll sit there and like, and they got that, and they have this going on there, like,
Yep.
let them do it again,
Yep.
yeah, and they have that going on there. So there is
Yeah.
some chord closure and this and going on
Yeah.
there that they maintain to the top. But you're right, for the most part, you do sometimes. There's like
They're doing
that
this thing,
happens
and
when they
then
get lower.
but when they got to go to a high C or whatever, if they got to go to high B flat, they're doing it the same. When you listen to them, they're doing it the same way. It's very,
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah,
similar. So
100%.
that's good. I'm glad we hit on that.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
okay, two, 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 like couple more technique questions I want to ask you about the state of opera after that. Okay,
Mhm.
so there's always this old argument, old school versus new school opera singers. The old school are so much better, and they used some school. They were all chest voice, and they say no, they're all head voice, and there's
Mhm.
always this big fight. And the new guys can't sing and fill the opera house like the old guys did,
Mhm.
and blah 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 blah. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean,
Is it a legit argument, or is it just people
it's
being
legit.
snobby?
It's legit, but it is also kind of snobby. It's this. I mean, when you consider there were people in the 1930s who were trashing the singers then and saying, "Oh, they don't sing as well as these people did in the 1910s."
Right,
And back then, there were people even in the turn of the century who were like, "Oh, it's nothing like they were in the 1850s and 60s." I mean, everybody always says that the generation before was better.
right,
That's not something that is ever going to change.
right.
And like I have my complaints about certain things, which actually probably would be best saved for the future of opera thing. So I'll put a pin in that.
Yeah.
But as far as just the voices now, it's just a different time. It's you don't you don't have people who are it's a fast paced world. Um, Back then, they had weeks to get to a gig because they're on a slow moving train or they're on a boat. There was no air travel, and if there was, it was very limited. And a lot of these people weren't singing as I don't want to say they weren't singing as consistently. That's not entirely true because you look at some of the old schedules of some of the singers, and they were singing every other day. And so there's something to be said for that, absolutely. But I just mean just the pace of the world is not as
Yeah.
hectic and frantic. And it's there's definitely a decline in the bigger voice and stuff like that, and you could chalk that up to technique or lack thereof. um Changing tastes. It's people don't want that big brassy sound as much, and aesthetics are changing, and um personal physical beauty is a huge thing now. Is There's a lot of emphasis on that right now. But so I'm not exactly a curmudgeon as far as there are no good singers anymore or something like that. But at the same time, though, I do wish I could hear tenors that sounded like my heroes, or I wish I could hear sopranos who sounded like my. But of course, they're out there. I mean, there's. I also very strongly believe that the voices are there. They just either haven't been discovered, or they went into a different venue, or they went into a different art form. the next, I don't want to say the next because there will never be a next, but like, you know, a singer with the abilities of a Tebaldi or a Callas may be, you know, right now singing musical theater, but she doesn't know it or something like that. Or she had decided that, well, I want to do this instead. And but they made the raw talent may have been there, but they just didn't realize it. Who knows? You know, it's you never know.
Right.
You never know.
And you could put a pin in that as well for the future
Yeah.
thing I want to talk about. Uh, all your years of training. You know, you've had many teachers. You've studied. You worked hard at your instrument. What if you had to sum up to a beginner? You were teaching a beginner, because I know you've been teaching as well too.
Mhm.
And I took a lesson from him, which was
Yes,
awesome.
you did. It's a good lesson,
Super
actually.
fun. Yeah, it was super fun. Um, how would you, if you had to sum up to a beginner, like, okay, we're going to start you out the right way, build your voice up. What is what do you feel is really important? Like, what is like some people say, the old singers will say, some people say, oh, the old singers had more chest voice in their sound. And then
Yeah.
some, no, they had more head. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just wading through the water, listening to the conversations, but not knowing, what do
Yeah.
you consider to be the foundation of if you're teaching a beginner, what's your foundation that you're going to give them in the beginning?
Um,
If you would, someone's like,
I
dude,
mean, this is going to sound so highfalutin, and it's going to sound so, um, like I'm trying to give you an answer, like being too cool for school or something like that, but I really mean it. An appreciation, you know, I give them I try to give them as close an experience as I had when I was a kid, when I discovered a lot of this stuff and just fell in love with it and said, this is amazing. And try to say, no, really listen to this opera, listen to this, and really, listen to this tenor and listen to this voice and do this kind of stuff and really give them a love for it. Because, when I became too robotic of a technical singer, I missed something here, and when I sang too much on this, I forgot about this and this.
right,
So, but the point is, it always had to be there. I always, when I'm in a rut and when I'm upset about something, I have to remember why I'm doing it. It's because I love it.
mm-hmm.
And there's an amazing interview with a great Romanian soprano. She's got to be about 100 now, but I mean, her name is Virginia Zeani. And she talks about when she was very, very young, she went to Milan to meet Aureliano Pertile, who's one of the great tenors, and he was retired and he was old and just living there with his wife. And she went to his door, like you could do back in the day, and rang on his doorbell, and had a coaching with him and chatted, and he told her, he said, look, when you sing, stand with your shoulders back and love your audience. There has to be an exchange of love. You love them, you give them your voice, you give them the beauty of your sound, and they give you their love, their applause, whatever that happens to be. And a lot that's missing so much right now. Everybody says, I want to be technically perfect, or they say, well, I want to make a lot of money. And I usually tell people, then do something else. If that's your goal in this career, sorry, I just yanked my earphone out. If that's your goal, then do something else. And there's nothing worse than coming across colleagues, and I've come across them who just, they don't love what they do.
Right.
And, on the contrary, they hate it. They do it because they've been at it long enough and it pays the bills. And you sit there like, tell me where to go, director, conductor, stay out of my way. I've been doing this role. Just let me do what I want to do. And you see people who they don't have any passion or love.
Right.
So that's number one, is what I would do, is because those were the purest, most beautiful moments of my musical discovery, when I was so new to everything and I was hearing things for the first time I saw an opera, the first time I, went to, rest in peace, the first time I ever went to Tower Records in New York, by Lincoln Center, and went into that opera section and saw the largest collection of opera CDs that maybe exists anywhere, when it was still there, and just was like, oh my God, I want to buy everything. And literally the the arousal I was getting being in here, like, oh my God, oh my God, look at these CDs, this
Yeah.
is, and obviously that kind of experience is never going to be around for a kid now because they have YouTube and this and that. But I mean, but just that kind of pure discovery and seeing them discover something and go, wow, that's so cool. That's what I would give first before anything else. And then comes, okay, do you like that? Is that really what you like? And how is this for you? All right, let's roll up our sleeves. And to give you a more practical answer, then we would talk about breathing. Then it
So,
would breathing and support.
and so what is support physically to you? That's the number one question everyone always asks.
Yeah.
As a teacher, I say, well, you got to support, and then I go, I hate saying it, but there's, to me, it kind of just goes with sound. There's a supported sound, there's an unsupported sound. For you, what is it to you? Like I let this go, my ribs go out, I do this, blah, blah, blah. And then what is the whole action of the support?
Sure. For me, breathing and
Convoluted answer from everybody.
yeah. Well, for me, I'll try to be as concise as I can.
Yeah.
For me, breathing and support is so much more about relaxation than it is about anything else. Is there tension? Is there contraction? Of course there is, but I don't think it's optimal. You don't reach the optimal amount of support and expansion of your breath if you're not relaxed, and if there isn't a release going on in the body. To give an example, when I'm on stage singing before an entrance, because in a lot of Rossini and bel canto type music, you have 39,000 bars of intro before your very first line, and it's it goes on forever, and it's plenty of time to get nervous and tense and okay, thinking about your first note and stuff like that. But what I trained myself to do through advice from my teacher was to literally exhale through all of that. So I'm in character, but I'm going literally releasing, completely releasing, just completely letting go until the very second I have to sing, and just going like, so if it goes dun 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 dun, dun, and that's my first note, it's literally just dun 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 dun. Echo. Not before, because if you are sitting here just already holding yourself tense, holding yourself really tight, and you breathe on top of that tension, you get a breath like that. But if you're relaxed and released, there's your deep breath.
Yep.
And it's a term I coined. The term I coined myself, but the concept is nothing new. People have been teaching it for hundreds of years. Is I call it a trapdoor inhale. So it's this idea of being completely relaxed, and then finally, just like a trapdoor, the door, like in a cartoon, the cartoon when shum, it's that idea of just there's the breath coming in underneath you, and it comes in through that way. But you can only get that kind of thing through relaxation.
So you get your breath, you open up, you get your breath relaxed. What's done with the breath against the hold?
Exactly.
Done?
So the next part this is where the muscles and everything kick in. So there's a lot of people, even Pavarotti used to talk about this idea of supporting like you're sitting on a toilet. And it's that kind of muscle that you feel way down below, just above your junk and just below your belly button, that low. So whereas that's a fine idea, the only problem with that sometimes is this idea of that toilet move. Sometimes everything will tighten, everything closes down, and you grunt and this and that. So I like to liken it to something like this. So there's the expansion, and here's those muscles that we talked about. So it's just expand, then they kick into place. It's like a little tuck. So if I breathe in, there it is.
Yep.
It's in place. That's the contraction. And then it's about something like accessing it through something like a really strong exhale, like you're trying to blow up a balloon. This is directly from one of my teachers, Gerald Martin Moore. He's brilliant. But just this idea of taking a balloon, really stubborn little balloon out of the package, and you're trying to stretch it and get it, and you're so it's not passive. Your mouth isn't like a lot of air in your mouth. It's just very. It's like literally you feel a stripe all the way down to that muscle, and it kicks in right there. So then it's to me about finding that same connection on the onset when you sing. So it's e, 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 and feeling the same kind of muscle that goes on there.
Right.
And to me, that's support, is training the muscle so that it stays into place. Because a lot of people who may have underdeveloped support muscles, they'll get it on the onset, and then it fades. And then they lose
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
But keeping it, yeah, whatever you're doing, like that, and having it stay in place the whole time is just a result of training the muscles and making sure everything is in there. And also not letting go, like we talked about, or like you said, rather, like, when rock singers don't support the low notes, they'll sit here and lock in for the top and then, yeah, then
And
they
they let
just let
go.
go and
Yeah.
collapse.
Yep.
As opposed to, yeah, and
Is your
staying,
is your onset because there's always like a little conversation about this. You
yeah.
inhale, and then some people believe there's like mini split second before you release the air, or are you thinking in and the air comes out in all one smooth motion versus in support sing, kind of like a
Well, I
second.
mean, the process of getting it more automatic, you have to break it down like that. There absolutely has to be a thing like that. But eventually it just gets to, ah, and you're
Yeah,
there.
gotcha.
It's the same idea of somebody learning to perfect a golf swing or anything like that. You obviously go through all the motions. Okay, I don't play golf, but I'm just here and make sure hips and this on whatever,
Right.
or sinking a jump shot. If somebody actually was on the court and they went through each part of it, I mean, someone would smack the ball out of their hands before they even get it up there. But eventually it becomes one through motion. You don't think about it as much.
Hmm.
But if I if I think about it too, if I micromanage it like that, I'm just going to slow myself down. So it has to just be a process of, okay, little by little. It's the same as, learning something like coloratura like I did there. Of course, you think about, and you think about each of those notes. Okay. Okay, that's good. Okay. And then you just build it more and more
Awesome.
before you just are off and running on a full page of ornaments like that. So
Right. Okay, that's great. That's
yeah,
that's killer. We're running. I'm gonna finish this up, but I want to not finish up. I want to just get off the technique for a second, and I
yeah,
want to
sure.
talk a little bit how COVID hurt everybody, and also with your living and opera in general. And where do you think the future of opera to me is sort of dying, and it kind of bums me out because I got into it late at life, at least enjoying
Yeah,
it. I'd like to go to more operas. I'd like to, I wish there was more places I could go. Like where in the States, it's very rare.
yeah,
I was going to the Met performances that they do in HD at my little
yeah,
local
yeah, yeah,
movie theater here. They were doing it. So me and my wife were going on Saturday mornings at 9 in the morning. They were doing nine
yeah.
in the morning. They would do it. So I would
That's crazy. Yeah,
break
that's right.
down. Yeah, I'd be like drunk from Friday night. Get up, we gotta go see the opera. Like,
Nice,
trying to
nice.
sober up in the theater. So
Yeah.
like, but now, like, how do you feel? What do you feel? What do you feel needs to happen? What do you feel? Where do you think it's going? How you staying positive?
Yeah, I mean, I'm exceedingly lucky that I'm working as much as I am. So that is, I'll start off by saying I'm incredibly lucky and fortunate. Um, yeah, of course it's the result of hard work and this and that and doing well, of course. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who work hard who are very good who aren't working right now. Um, so I do count myself lucky. But uh, it's difficult because the people I feel most sorry for are the people who are getting out of school right now, who are getting out of grad school with you know loads of debt, an ever shrinking industry, and even more singers being flushed into it. And but as far as uh, like the future of the industry, like I love that there was so much digital content and there was so much stuff going on because we had no other choice, and it had to stay relevant. The thing that I am very nervous about is I hope the industry doesn't stay that way in an attempt to save money. You know, like, well, we'll do something online because it was such a big hit during pandemic. So we'll do an online concert every. It's like
That's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'm afraid.
because ultimately, you know, and it's a difference between, you know, an opera that's live streamed from the house because it's taking place in the house, you know, but because ultimately this art form is, it was built and created for a theater. It's a live art. And there's just a lot of, you know, digital manipulation that's going into stuff, and they're trying to make everything like a film, and they're trying to do this, and you've got people doing, you know, filmed versions of operas over a track and stuff like that. And you know, someone could argue, yeah, well, they did that in the old days too. It's like, yeah, they did, but there was plenty of live theater going on at the same time. You knew that if you wanted to go, you know, see Pavarotti, you could you know you could watch the Zeffirelli movies, which are, you know, dubbed, they're not live sung, but you were going to go see that production in the house too at the same thing. So I'm nervous about the the consistent amount of online stuff that's happening. And yes, it saves money. Um, you know, I did a handful of things during pandemic too that, you know, really didn't pay me much, but you know, I'm not going to say no, because one, staying relevant is important and staying out there, and two, needed the money. You know, I'll take what I can get. I can't sit here and say, and you know, I had colleagues saying you really shouldn't accept that because it's going to lower the pay scale for everybody else. I'm like, well, I hate to break it to you, but it's going to change regardless after this. Like, and sure enough, what happens? You know, our union just released online their plans to like slash artist fees at the Met and stuff, and by a substantial amount. And you know, other houses will follow suit, and it's going to go down. And we all kind of knew it was going to happen, but it's just the fact that it's here, and the fact that it's here before things even resume back to normal. Like, a lot of us are like, oh, good, live performances are happening again. But before we can even get excited about that, you know, we're getting hit with the reality that, oh yeah, but you're going to make a fraction of what you made in the past. Oh, and by the way, there's going to be less performances, so less fees. And yeah, and we may not be able to do rehearsal fees like we did before. It's a really scary time. So but you know, I don't know what the answer is to
Right.
keeping it relevant and keeping it going. I can honestly tell you, if I knew, or if I thought I had a really damn good idea, I'd be putting a lot of time and effort into it, because you know, it matters. It's important. You know,
Very important, I think.
yeah. I mean, it's I had some. Have you ever seen the movie Best in Show?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um, there's that great scene at the end where they talk about the money they donate, and he goes, "Yeah, well, we're gonna give some money to Shih Tzu Rescue." And the one guy goes, I mean, shitty. The one guy goes, I'm like, what Shih Tzu is like stumbling through the streets going, oh, alms for the poor, alms for the poor, which is like so true. But I had somebody one time liken the uh the plight of opera to that, like, oh, donate to the opera, we're suffering. I'm like, "Ah, okay, I get the humor in that, and I laughed at it, you know, to say like, oh, us poor opera singers are starving and we can't do anything. But it's again, it's being saddled with that, you know, that snob stigma
Yep.
for decades and decades and decades. And that's the one thing I'd love to do more than anything, is to try to dispel those myths and try to really show people like, hey, like, you should see the vast amount of normalcy
Yeah.
in the amount of opera singers here. Like, are there personalities? Of course there are. Are there snobs who go and attend and put on their finery and stuff like that? Yes, of course there are. Of course. But it's not it's not the elitist thing that people think it is.
Right.
It's much more approachable, and I think they're doing a really good job at trying to break that down, especially in the States, even more so. Um, but I don't know. That's something I'd really try to do, is to try to let people know that, you know, this is a very vital, and it's a very important art form that needs to be preserved, and it's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it can't disappear now. Not because of this.
Yeah, no, good answer.
Yeah.
I'm like I said, I'm so mad I've only come into it the last 10 years of my life.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, why didn't I get into this when I was younger? Because I love it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
bums me out. But I'm glad to see that you're doing well, and we're gonna wrap it
Thanks,
up.
man.
And yeah, man, just hang in there. And
Thanks, dude.
I was gonna come see you in the for the Rossini Festival. I don't know if I can go. I don't know if Italy's accepting yet.
They are. I will let you know. They are opening the summer to tourists who are vaccinated.
Ah, I'm vaccinated.
So it's probably it's the best possibility for my wife to get out here because she can't come to see me here in Switzerland, so she's gonna have to come to Italy. So when I'm there,
Nice.
so yeah, that's it's happening. So take a
Yeah.
fly over to Bologna and then hop a train to Pesaro.
Yeah.
So
And then, so you've got the one you're doing in Zurich now, and then you're doing the Rossini Festival, and then anything future that you've got on the books?
yeah, I have more assignments here in Zurich. Actually, I'm building a nice relationship with this company. I've got a number of concerts in the States. Actually, I have a recital, some recitals and concerts, and um, what else is going on? I'm doing a Handel's Messiah with the Kansas City Symphony, which is a gig I've been chasing for a while because my in-laws and that whole side of my family, wife's family, they're all from Kansas City. So I've been trying so hard now to perform in Kansas City. So I was supposed to do it last winter, but obviously that didn't happen. So I'm going to get to do it now. So it'll be nice to be able to perform in a place I consider home very much. So it's cool.
And are you still
And
are you still going to teach a little bit?
yeah, I am. Yeah.
How does
And
anyone
then
reach you if they want to study with you?
yeah, so usually best way to contact is on Instagram. I'm pretty active there. I'm not really on Facebook anymore. So yeah, you can find that it's Andrew Owens Tenor on Instagram there, all one word, Andrew Owens Tenor. I do a lot of content on there with when I have the time and when I think of something to say, I usually do like an Instagram live and I'll talk about technique and answer questions. And
Yeah, I
I
was
have one
loving those.
coming up.
You haven't
Yeah,
done?
I have one coming up in a couple days actually.
Okay, good.
So got a special guest that I can't. We haven't set the time yet, so I don't want to say who it is just yet. But
Okay,
it'll be great. It's a
cool.
very very wonderful singer that I admire, who's quite the presence on social media. So I'm glad we can combine our powers
Awesome.
for for the benefit of all the nerds out there who
Yeah, I
love
look
to
forward
talk about opera.
to it. Awesome, man, dude. Thanks a lot. Thank you very
My
much.
pleasure, dude. Great
And,
to talk to you, and keep in touch, man. All right.
absolutely. Hold on one second. This real
Yeah.
singer on singing, everybody. Take care, and remember, opera singers do it better. Ha ha ha. Bring on it.
Nice.